Israel now being labelled as committing genocide, and Netanyahu's response is, how do the committee members view this? What do they think?
For a long time, I didn't dare to watch the news about the Gaza Strip because every time I saw it, as a parent, just seeing those people would make you want to cry. You'd wonder, what kind of karma did these innocent children have in their past lives to deserve such suffering? And that's not even mentioning the footage released by the director at the Venice Film Festival, which was, of course, shocking. So one thing I'm really curious about is that over the past few decades, the international community has constantly talked about the so-called axis of evil forces, namely China, Russia, and North Korea. Iran makes the fourth country. Let's go through them one by one. In the Russia-Ukraine war, those who have died are all soldiers. There's not much to say about that. Soldiers defend their country, soldiers protect their homeland. But on that battlefield, whether it's Russia or Ukraine, there have been no massacres of women or children. And even more so, up to now in the Russia-Ukraine war, UN observers, Doctors Without Borders, and other NGOs have not been indiscriminately killed or bombed on that battlefield. Such incidents simply haven't happened. But if you look at what's happening in Gaza, how many journalists have lost their lives there? How many Doctors Without Borders and United Nations staff members have been killed? How many people from NGOs have sacrificed their lives there, killed one after another by Israel's relentless bombs? What kind of situation is this? If Russia can be called an axis of evil, then what is Israel doing right now? In the past, everyone said North Korea was part of the axis of evil, but what has Kim Jong-un actually done during this period, aside from making a lot of noise and occasionally launching a missile? Who has he killed? Which country has he invaded? Not to mention mainland China. And then look at Iran. People say Iran is the axis of evil in the Middle East, but now Israel is fighting on 5 fronts. Who is the real axis of evil in the Middle East? It's Israel, not Iran. Has Iran ever fought on 5 fronts and created such chaos? Of course this is genocide. If this isn't genocide, then what is it? Are Palestinians not human? Back then, how were the Jews in Israel massacred by the Germans, by the Nazis? What kind of support did the whole world give? That's why we supported the founding of Israel. So all along, there has always been an emotional support for Israel, but now the situation is reversed. Back then, you were the victims of genocide, so why are you now committing genocide against the Palestinians? Palestinians are also human beings. They live on this earth just like everyone else and have human rights like everyone else. So I have to say, what's truly sad about Israel is that Netanyahu's government and his group of right-wing politicians are, without a doubt, just another version of Hitler. These people should have been defined as such long ago. But the key issue I want to bring up is that I don't believe that Netanyahu and these right-wing politicians do not represent all Israelis, nor all Jewish people. So while we can be dissatisfied with what they've done, there's no need to direct all our anger at Jewish people as a whole. Over this period, we've seen many Jewish individuals bravely stand up, expressing positions completely different from the Israeli government. Today, Israel relies on U.S. backing. It's as if they've hijacked America. You might say the U.S. is Israel's big brother, right? I actually think the U.S. is more like Israel's little brother. The two of them are tied together. The U.S. caters to Israel's every demand. But if America continues to let Israel act this way, it will plunge the entire Middle East into another endless cycle of revenge and retaliation. When you see what the US is doing, Israel can send fighter jets, refueled by American and British tankers, fly past US defense lines, and then bomb Qatar. Do you really think Arab countries will still trust America's protection? Will they still believe in America's promises? It turns out America's commitment to success is selective. If one day Israel wants to bomb my country, the US will just open up its defenses and let them through, even refueling them if they run low. So does America really need to gamble everything for Israel? In the end, what will be lost? It will be the universal values that the US has built up in the international community over the years, the so-called axis of evil that America used to talk about. How does that compare to Israel? And yet America ultimately chooses to stand with the devil of the Middle East. So what happens next? How will global information be protected? Who will still talk about justice? Who will still talk about human rights? Who will still insist that we must defend the rules of the world order?
All right, Ross, I have a few questions. First, for the first time, the UN has labelled Israel with genocide. Please respond to that. Second, when we talk about the axis of evil, is it Iran or Israel? Third, regarding the current Gaza war, as mentioned, many committee members point out that many Jewish people disagree with it. Is this a problem with Netanyahu and his right-wing politicians? What are your thoughts?
First, I want to respond to the committee member, because just now the Russia-Ukraine war was mentioned. But at the start of the war, Russian troops did invade Ukraine and targeted civilians. There are many related reports on this. So we can't say that the Russian army only targeted Ukrainian soldiers. They definitely attacked many civilians. As for the issue of genocide, the United Nations has called it genocide. But how is that possible? Palestinians are Arabs, and there are so many Arabs. How can this be called genocide? There are some similar arguments, but this is not the case at all. And of course, we also have to include North Korea. If you want to talk about North Korea, you can say that its police and government have done things externally. But the real problem is that internally, this country has absolutely no human rights, right? How many people have been imprisoned or killed? So I think North Korea's situation is simply not comparable at all. There's absolutely no basis for comparison. It's completely ignorant. As for Netanyahu's administration, personally, I've never liked him. I think he's somewhat corrupt, and it would be best if he stepped down as soon as possible.
So,
indeed, in Israel or the United States, there are many people with liberal views who often participate in protests. But when it comes to war or defending the country, in the end, they still support the current Israeli government. In fact, there is a very simple way to resolve this war, which is for Hamas to surrender. But Hamas has insisted on fighting to the very last moment, to the last bullet, to the last member of their armed group. This is what has dragged the war on for so long. So the problem isn't Israel. The real problem is Hamas. Additionally, I want to respond to the BDC report and remind the audience that this camp doesn't just include the US and Israel. Recently, another country has joined. Which country is that? And I'm actually quite disappointed in the legislator because he didn't mention this. He spent a lot of time criticizing the US, but didn't criticize Taiwan. Recently, Taiwan has also been very supportive of Israel. In fact, just these past few days, an Israeli member of parliament visited Taiwan. And Taiwan's president and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs were very pleased to be able to strengthen relations with Israel at this time. So if you want to criticize the US, that's fine, but you should also spend some time looking at why your own government supports Israel.
Thank you, Ross, for giving me this time. Earlier, Ross mentioned the massacre in a small Russian town. Do you all still remember that massacre turned Putin into a war criminal, an enemy of the world? How many people died in that small town? How many were slaughtered? Israel is currently in Palestine, in Gaza. How many people have been killed? Just counting women and children, it's already 50 or 60,000. Do these people deserve to die? Are they all Hamas? Did they have guns in their hands? Was that 5-year-old girl who was shot in the head also Hamas? Does that make any sense? If you tell me today, if you say that Palestinians are Arabs, so there's no genocide because there are a lot of Arabs, then let me tell you, everyone in the world is an earthling. Any war that happens on earth can't be called genocide since we're all just people. Taiwanese are people, Filipinos are people. If you wiped out all the Taiwanese, it wouldn't be genocide either because there are still people left. As long as there are still earthlings. Does that logic make sense? No matter what internal issues North Korea has, how does the United States treat North Korea? How did Trump praise them? How did his administration try to win over North Korea? Now you call North Korea part of the axis of evil, just because of its internal affairs, you say. You say they treat their own people like that. Then look at how the United States treated Vietnam, when Vietnam was criticized by the United States as being communist. But now, in order to win over Vietnam and contain mainland China, Biden would rather go there and shake hands with Vietnam. Just look at how back then, how did Biden treat the Arab countries? When those Arab countries murdered a journalist, how did Biden criticize them? But in the end, for the sake of America's interest, what did Biden do? What I'm trying to say is, in this war, if it's between Hamas and Israel, then just deal with Hamas. Don't try to shift all the blame onto Hamas and saying that because Hamas refuses to give up the war, we have to kill all the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. This kind of argument really doesn't make sense. Not a single European country, including Germany, accepts it. So on this issue, the general consensus in the international community is already clear.
Let me help Datian explain. Datian's viewpoint is very simple. If Hamas no longer existed, this problem would be greatly reduced. But the approach that Netanyahu is taking now is that regardless of as long as you're currently in Gaza, as long as you dare to confront the state of Israel, I think you're Hamas. Why is that? It's because of the deep national trauma surrounding its founding. Israel was founded in this way. It was in a very difficult environment that it was able to succeed. Prime Minister Beacon was even more hawkish and terrifying than Netanyahu today. If he were prime minister today, I assure you, the Palestinians would be wiped out. So Netanya is certainly acting this way for his own political purposes. He needs domestic support, but the methods he's using have now drawn global ire. In Taiwan, we claim to be a democratic and free country, but we've always been like this. We're very supportive of Israel. However, the Israeli army's behavior on the front lines is no longer what we consider a normal military performance. No wonder over 10,000 Israeli soldiers are under pressure and injured. Israel also cannot ask for assistance from the rear group because they are the country's most important weapons and have helped the country win the war. But after they return, they suffer from depression. So, what about the Palestinians on the other side? I watched a clip of the little girl, but I didn't finish it. What was she killed by? She was killed by the IDF's Tiger tank, the world's best tank. Doesn't the Tiger tank have a main gun? Is it a 120mm gun? The little girl and her family were sitting in the car and were shot by the coaxial machine gun, 12mm nearby. 7mm. That's an extremely powerful weapon, firing continuously. The person shooting was the main gunner. He didn't know who was in the car. He thought it was Hamas, but it was just an ordinary family. The little girl's car was hit by 355 machine gun rounds. I can tell you, it was completely obliterated. So, this little girl's documentary has evoked a lot of emotional sympathy from viewers. It might be screened again at the Toronto Film Festival and the London Film Festival. When it was first shown, the audience gave a standing ovation for 23 minutes. I think the reason for the applause wasn't necessarily because the documentary was so well made, but because everyone should reflect on why, after such a tragedy, the international community can't condemn it, or why no one can stop such tragedies from happening again. Because as we speak, these tragedies are still happening in Gaza. Who can step in? Who can help? This is the core of the most important issue we're discussing today. We must find a way to prevent these tragedies from happening again, rather than just letting them continue.